If you want to continue to follow our adventure, click subscribe. So you don't miss anything, click the bell notification. Full house on the road, subscribers and followers. Someone on my Facebook group asked the question, should they live in a camper full-time because it's cheaper? And I've talked about this a lot. In my opinion, you have to have more reason than just come out here because it's cheap living. It has to be a part of you. It has to be something that you've dreamt about your entire life. I can remember that I've dreamt about this lifestyle since I was 12 years old. Now, when I was 12, it wasn't quite as developed and refined. I had no idea that you could live in a camper and all that. But I wanted to be out there. And as I got older and it got more developed, I dreamt about living in Alaska. And now that I'm actually doing it, I started out in a pop-up camper. Now it's a homemade truck camper. But it has to be more than just cheap living. I've met people who, on the advice of others, decided to come out here and they can't stand it. They hate it. And they don't know how to get back because they haven't saved enough money to actually get back. A longtime subscriber to our channel has made a comment, and she said, her name's Lori. She's been with us a long time, and I think she's watched every video we've made. She says the term nomadic, in her opinion, segregated from society that in itself is peace and quiet and solitude. This is more of a choice based on who you are and your personal nature, much more than money. I could never be a nomad. I would surely go insane. I do enjoy the peace of camping in short spurts, 2 months max. So the answer to my question, being a nomad is 90% self. Because I'm an introvert, and Lori knows this about me, she says that this lifestyle suits me. Whereas Lori, and you can tell that she is an extrovert, she likes being around people a lot. This lifestyle wouldn't fit her needs. Well, when I was telling you about the folks that we had met who, on the advice of others, came out here because it was cheap, that was one of their biggest complaints, was there's just nobody around to really talk to. Now, I know other YouTubers say you should follow their tribe. And that's fine, but then you're following the tribe. You're having to go where they're going, and you're spending more money. So that's not cheap either. When I replied to the fellow who asked the question, should they start this lifestyle because it's cheap? My reply was stern. You shouldn't. It absolutely shouldn't, because there's just a lot of work that goes into this lifestyle. I mean, you got things that you got to do, and you still have to try to make an income, and heat your water if you don't have a water heater. You got to live in a tight spot. All kinds of different chores that you didn't have in a stick and brick. Not only that, you still have the emotional effect of actually transitioning from this lifestyle to that lifestyle, which is very significant. It takes a long time to adapt to this lifestyle and get used to it. And I told them there's so many trials and tribulations. Well, somebody replied to me and said, what planet am I from? They suggested that there's trials and tribulations that you have to deal with in a stick and brick also. And that you got the stressful life and you got hard work. And I completely agree with that. I worked 60, 70, sometimes 90 hours. I've said that so many times when I lived in a stick and brick. And I still am suggesting that you don't come out here because it's cheaper just to deal with the trials and tribulations, unless it's something you just absolutely have to have. I've lived in both planets. I've lived with all that stress. And then I came out here and I lived with this. And I also had to deal with the camper burning down and getting back on the road. And a lot of people don't consider when thinking about this lifestyle, especially if they're thinking about it because it's cheap. I have made a lot of videos where I talk about follow your dream. Not my dream, not somebody else's dream. Follow your dream. You have to identify what your dream is. You have to be, what was it when you were 12 years old that you thought, I really want to do that? My initial thought to this dream when I was 12 years old, I went camping with my Aunt Jenny and her son, my cousin. And we spent the weekend out on the river. Well, my cousin and I was on a raft. It had a little trolling motor with a boat or a battery. And we was fishing and catching turtles and inventing little fishing nets out of trash cans. And we were wet the entire time. It was a lot of fun. And I thought about that most of my life, being out there, just enjoying nature, enjoying the wild. I saw my first garfish. It was an incredible weekend, and as I grew older, I kept wanting to relive that. I kept wanting to have that experience again. It was something that was just, I was born with, or introduced to very young, whatever the case is, and I grew up with it. So that's where you got to start with your dream. It can't start with money. Try to make your, if you want to, try to make a hobby out of it, make money with your dream, all these things, but it can't start with money. It's got to start with that feeling that this is what I want to do. Because if you are, like Lori, an extrovert, you're not going to like this. You're going to go insane. To think about some of the trials and tribulations, think about the amount of rain that Carolyn and I had to deal with this past year. It was rainy and cold most of the time we were out here. We went to Virginia, we got in the mountains, it was in the 50s and it rained all the time. Then we had to go down to Florida for the winter, and it was the coldest winter I think Florida has ever had, at least in a couple decades. It snowed while we were down there, and we're trying to live in a pop-up camper. It would be easy to just say, well, this isn't worth it, let's pack it up and go back in a stick and brick, unless it is absolutely something that you were wanting to live with. Right before we left Florida, there was a torrential rain, lasted for hours and hours and hours and hours, and then you have to go to the bathroom. Well, then you walk to the privy, which is, you know, a football field away, water ankle deep, and you're walking around in this cold water. It's not always just this wonderful romantic lifestyle that everything is perfect, because most of the time it isn't perfect. There are those small occasions where everything is perfect and you love it and you feel like, oh yeah, I remember that when I was 12. And that's why I'm out here, is for those small little moments. But there's a lot of moments that isn't that dream. It's walking through water, trying to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. So thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Click like if you like the video, and happy travels.